So with health concerns in the fever-pitch presidential election, mail-in ballots actually have become the bullseye topic for pundits on both sides of the aisle. So my purpose today is actually to persuade you to oppose mail-in ballots for the presidential election. As a Washingtonian, I really don't have a choice as far as how I vote in the state. However, it is quite convenient. So this convenience actually caused me to do some further research and to actually understand the process of mail-in ballots, and especially since the current elections are at the pinnacle of both presidential political debates. So whether you're a lawmaker or a concerned citizen, the common factor that actually unites us is the future for America. So the choices that we make about mail-in ballots can actually have very vast, outreaching effect on our democracy. So after hearing what I have to say today, I'm confident that you will actually oppose mail-in ballots for the presidential election. So I will begin today by expressing the problem. I'm going to explain why people do support mail-in ballots and also provide some counterpoints. Then I'm going to conclude with a solution to why we should oppose mail-in ballots. So with the roadmap in place, let's begin with the problem. The problem is that actually many Americans support mail-in ballots for the presidential election. For example, independent pollings actually have been showing a growing number for favoritism for ballots, for mail-in ballots. And according to an independent polling completed by the American Enterprise Institute, actually it was done in this last June 2020, when mentioning COVID-19, support for mail-in ballots is actually on the rise. And another example is actually that the number of absentee ballot requests is also on the rise across America. So, in an article published by the Democracy and Polarization in the Stanford lab in Stanford University, a study actually conducted that 65-year-olds are taking advantage of mail-in ballots, and in 2020, actually 23% of ballots casted by 65-year-olds actually have been by mail, compared to only 10% back in 2015. As you can see here on this graph, on this plot chart, you can see the vast growing in the last year from pre-2020 and 2020. So for the shares of ballot cast per absentee, and also in the age of election, you can clearly see the difference between 2020 and 2020. And in here at the age of election, also the turnout per 100 people, you can clearly see the difference in the growth and showing favoritism here. So with the problem covered, let's move on to some supporting causes. There are actually two main reasons why most Americans support mail-in ballots for the presidential election. The first reason comes from the belief that mail-in ballots actually offer a safe alternative to traditional in-person voting. Also, an investigation that was actually conducted by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services during the primaries, they actually noted that in-person voting contributed to the spread of COVID-19. And in fact, 71 positive cases were actually directly confirmed from in-person voting actually goes on April 7th. However, with social distancing guidelines actually in place across the nation and wearing masks, voting at polling stations are no different than any other essential places that are out there where people gather. The Center of Disease Control and Dr. Fauci, who is the director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, they actually approved the use of masks, and as he noted many times actually during the White House briefings, that to prevent the spread of COVID-19 where people gather, and he also adamantly issued social distancing guidelines. So the second reason is actually the belief that mail-in ballots offers an effective alternative for Americans who are unable to actually go to voting places. And according to an article actually published by the Heritage Foundation, the author notes that citizens with disabilities who work abroad and military, they actually need absentee ballots So the inability to make it to the polls on the designated date is actually very legitimate. However, mail-in ballots actually are not an effective alternative for Americans who are unable to vote in person. So during the primary election in Wisconsin in April 2020, as a matter of fact, many citizens actually never even got their ballots. And then after the elections, they noted that there was actually 3 large tubs that were full of ballots that citizens actually never got. So their votes, they never got the opportunity to vote. So with the problem and causes in mind, let's move on to the solution. So the solution, which is actually to oppose mail-in ballots in favor of in-person voting for the presidential election, offers 2 benefits. The first benefit is actually higher voter turnout. So according to the Center for Disease Control, following and implementing social distancing guidelines actually prevent the spread of the disease, and these guidelines have been implemented in many essential businesses across America with actual positive results. And in other words, considering the presidential election, voting as an essential thing, it would actually have the same positive results in preventing COVID-19. The second benefit is actually mitigating the overload on the United States Postal Service, processing ballots to and from citizens. So in an article published again by the Heritage Foundation, they explained that in previous primary elections in 2012, 2014, 2016, and 2018, actually 28 million ballots were lost in the mail. So this scenario actually shows the competency of the United States Postal Service, and these ballots, the lost ballots, actually show that the efforts intended to curb the loss of ballots is actually quite abysmal. And in other words, American citizens having the choice to go to the voting at polling stations will significantly reduce the issue of lost ballots and actually promote an accurate vote count during the crucial constitutional right of the American way of life. In conclusion, keeping in-person voting as a primary method for electing the president is right for America. So let's review what we learned today. First, we learned that the problem is actually many Americans support mail-in voting and mail-in ballots for the presidential election, as evidenced by independent polls are showing a growing number of favoritism towards mail-in ballots, and absentee ballots requests are growing across the nation. Next, we learned 2 reasons why most Americans actually support mail-in ballots for the presidential election. First, mail-in ballots actually offer a safe alternative to the traditional voting, traditional in-person voting. However, social distancing guidelines in place across the nation and wearing masks, voting at polling stations are actually no different than any other essential places where people gather. And second, the belief that mail-in ballots are an effective alternative for Americans who are unable to vote in person. However, many Americans actually share the belief that the trust in the post office is diminished drastically. And finally, we learned that the solution to oppose mail-in ballots in favor of in-person voting for the presidential election offers 2 benefits, and these are also to include higher turnout voting rate for traditional voters and reducing lost ballots due to pressure on the post office. So, in closing, regarding mail-in ballots, what you've heard today should sway you to reject actual mail-in ballots in favor of the more traditional way of voting for the presidential election. It should be a matter of objective reasoning when debating such a crucial topic in today's political theater. The American tradition of voting is the actual responsibility of its citizens, and it should be held as sacred. So, ladies and gentlemen, please have a beautiful red, white, and blue day.